All right, welcome back. Part two. Got my Coyotes jersey on because that's kind of what inspired this. I like to look at this, I don't know, every like 6 or 7 years. And it was time, man. The Coyotes may be moving. So here we go. Part two, Western Conference. Um, we'll start with relocation teams that may happen in the future. Again, just like the Eastern Conference, there's only really two that could potentially at some point in the future. And odds are most of these teams, if not all, don't move. The Coyotes kind of being the pending up in the air one. We don't really know what's going to happen, if they're going to move or not. That's pretty self-explanatory at this point. I also have the Ducks. The Ducks have been bad for quite some time. And I know there's a lot of Ducks fans there that exist, and they're diehard. But it's LA, and they have two hockey teams. You also have the Kings in LA. It's kind of the same issue in almost every sport that has multiple teams in LA, which is every sport. I think it's every sport. Hockey, baseball, yeah, every sport. Every sport has at least every of the four major sports: football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Have two. So there's at least 8 professional sports teams. I think there's 9. I don't know. 8 professional sports teams in LA minimum. I'm not counting. Each team there, or each sport, has one team that is underperforming. And I think it's partly just being in the LA market. It's almost similar, not quite as similar to the Miami market, where there's a lot of casual fans, not as many diehards, but there's a lot of people. So if the team's doing well, they'll show up. If not, it's whatever. There's always another team that's doing well. The Ducks aren't all that bad with attendance. Again, they do have a pretty diehard fan base. This is one of those teams, though, I could see being sold at one point and possibly moving to a place like San Diego. That would make the most sense for me if the Ducks were to be sold and relocated, San Diego. But let's talk about potential markets. I'm not saying the Ducks are moving. I don't want them to move. I kind of like them where they are. They could even move a little further out east. It's backwards. It's the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. To maybe San Bernardino or the Riverside area. I don't know how feasible that would be. It's kind of like a metro area in its own, and it's a little removed from LA, but it's still pretty close to LA. That could be interesting. But markets, main one being Houston. It seems like the Coyotes are going to move to Houston. That's going to be inevitable. It's not set in stone yet. It's a lot of rumors happening. A lot of pieces that are public information that we can kind of connect the dots from. Houston, it's mainly because it's a huge market. It's by far the largest market on this list by well over 2 times the next highest. Just kidding. That's San Diego. It's not quite twice as large as San Diego. Houston already has 3 major sports of the 4: MLB, NFL, NBA. Rockets, Texans, and Astros. It could do well. Houston has a weird hockey market. They've had the Houston Aeros there for a bit, and that's been a very good AHL franchise. It's a very intriguing place to move to. There's a lot of roots. Kind of continues with Bettman's Southern expansion type thing. I know we all want that to be over. I don't know if it necessarily is at this point because some of these teams have become successful. Nashville Predators, Carolina Hurricanes, Tampa Bay Lightning, Dallas Stars. Like a lot of these teams have panned out to turn into hockey markets in unconventional ways. Vegas, for example. So Houston would not surprise me. Austin, though, I think if I were going to move a team to Texas, I would probably choose Austin. Metro population of $2.35 million. They don't really have any major professional sports. They're big in college football. That's what you do on Saturdays in Austin if you're into the college football scene, and not everybody is. A nice balance to that would be a hockey team. There is a lot of people from, I don't know, California up north, the northwest, the northeast of the U.S. I'm not sure about Canadian migration to the U.S. Couldn't tell you a thing about where that happens. But nonetheless, there's already a lot of people interested in hockey in Austin. You're not really competing with any of the other major sports to get a spot. I honestly think my pick of the list is Austin, and it wasn't even on my list of thinking until I did all the research. And um, I don't know. I think that would be great if they had a team in Austin. Um, Houston. Houston's where I begin to struggle because there's such an urban sprawl in that area. It's not easy to get to where you need to, and the lack of public transportation is brutal. You need a car, and you need to drive probably on a highway, and it's going to take you time because it's not a walkable place. Public transit's low. It's a tougher city to place a team. Where in Houston would you place a team? You can place it in downtown, but that's going to be extremely expensive. You're going to have to get rid of something that already exists to make room for the stadium. You're going to have to provide a lot of mitigation to the city from an engineering standpoint, which is going to cost you even more money. But then do you put it in the suburbs somewhere? You have to drive. You're going to have parking lots because a lot of people live in the, I don't know, I call it suburbs, but it's still Houston. I think parts of Houston are almost like suburbs in other major cities. It's a weird city. But I have no doubt that these challenges could be overcome, and a team would be successful in either Houston or Austin. I don't know. I think I'm a little partial to Austin, but I think both, probably going to Houston, but I think both of them, you're not really going to be able to go wrong. I think they're both great options. Salt Lake City has been in the news quite a bit. There's an owner that wants to buy the Coyotes and has insisted on having a team in Salt Lake City. I don't know. Personally, I'm a little skeptical. 1.26 million people in the metro area, and these are all approximate numbers. It's hard to find very consistent data, especially between countries. And in Canada, too, it was a lot of city population and not metro population. A lot of the population for these cities are in the city of its name, and the metro areas aren't all that developed, I guess is a good word for that. There's not a whole lot of sprawl, which isn't a bad thing at all. Like it's not a bad thing. Salt Lake City, they have a basketball team. They're big into football. I don't know. It's the fan base in Salt Lake City from an NBA standpoint gets a lot of flack league wide from other fan bases because they're not a liked fan base. I personally don't really know. I don't follow the NBA. This is just what have you by word of mouth and by internet. I don't know. I'm not sure if a population of 1 million, you have BYU, which is a big school. They do basketball and football. You have a professional basketball team there. I don't know, and it could be how viable Salt Lake City is to have an NHL team be successful in that market. I don't know. But my answer would lean towards probably not. That might not be the best idea. It's an idea. We'll leave it at that. San Diego, they have an AHL team. What is that? I always get the San Diego teams confused. Is it the Gulls? Or that might be baseball. I don't know. Anyway, San Diego, pretty decent hockey market. Hasn't shown it's the best hockey market, but should be able to sustain some type of hockey franchise. Especially if it's a local team like the Ducks. There are already Ducks fans likely in San Diego and the San Diego. Actually, there are. I have a friend who lives in San Diego, and she's a big Ducks fan. Cool. I just put that together. So, it could work. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. San Diego has the San Diego Padres for baseball. They lost the San Diego Chargers to LA. LA, right? Yeah, LA. It's LA and Vegas both got a bunch of teams all of a sudden in football. But nonetheless, there's a hole there, kind of like Seattle. When the Kraken moved to Seattle, that was after the Seattle Supersonics of the NBA moved to Oklahoma City. There's kind of a hungry market for more professional sports. I think San Diego, and they have the population, they can support two teams. I don't think that would really be an issue. Be an interesting place to move, be a cool destination. San Diego is really interesting. Kansas City, it's baffling. I don't know how they only have two professional sports teams there. It seems like there should be a basketball team there. I don't really know why there isn't. Nonetheless, population a little over 2.5 million. Decent size. They have baseball. They have football. The Royals. Was totally blanking on the baseball name. It's like they have the Chiefs. We know that. It's the Royals. Fan support for the Chiefs has been great. The Royals have been really bad for a long time. The owner doesn't like to spend money, so it's kind of tough to gauge based on the baseball aspect of it. But I think it would work in Kansas City. I really do. You have a lot of hungry sports fans in the Kansas City area. I think it would be good. Cincinnati's next on the list. Cincinnati, population a little over 2.2 million. They have baseball. They have football. It's kind of an interesting area because it's also right across the river from Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky. So kind of a cool area, kind of an unconventional area. Cincinnati as a whole, probably a decent hockey market. The metro area in Kentucky, probably a very unconventional hockey market, so you can kind of mix those together. I don't know. I think they'd be decent. They have 2 sports teams right now, the Cincinnati Reds. Yeah. And they have the Cincinnati Bengals. They do have college football going on there, and that's a pretty big deal. But overall, I don't know. I think it's decent. I think you could think about it. Indianapolis, population 2.1 million. All they have is the Indiana Pacers of the NBA. 1 professional sports team. They have the Indianapolis 500 and with the F1 cars, and they do a NASCAR Indy race, the Brickyard 400 and stuff. I don't know. I don't really. Those are not frequent events. It's like the Kentucky Derby. Like, it happens once a year. There's I don't know, 3 major races a year for Indianapolis. So I'm not really considering that into taking away from a hockey market. Very different type of fan. Nonetheless, I think it's doable. Indianapolis is a really cool city. And my least favorites, I've been to 30 U.S. states so far. My least favorite is probably Indiana. Just driving through Indiana is brutal. But Indianapolis is a cool young town. A lot of young people. I think you can make it work. I really do. Indianapolis, probably deserving of another sports team. I don't see them getting baseball anytime soon. Oh, they have the Colts. My bad. They have the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, okay. So they have 2 teams. I don't know. I still think it's a good market for hockey. Milwaukee, now this is a tough sell for me. Milwaukee, already lower on the population, just under 1.5 million. They already have 2 professional sports teams. Baseball, they got the Brewers, and you got the NBA, Milwaukee Bucks. The fans are fantastic, though, in Milwaukee. I'm just throwing that out there. They have sometimes these teams are not good, and the fans still turn out. So all the respect to Milwaukee fans. It's a tough area. Milwaukee's, I don't even know, 90 minutes, couple hours north of Chicago, which is fine. It's also 4-ish hours east of the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, where the Wild play. So I don't know. It's kind of a tough location. And then it's like, if you don't go there, you want to be more central. Where do you go? Do you go to Green Bay, or do you go to Madison? Do you go to Appleton? I feel like Appleton might be the sweet spot. You kind of get those Green Bay fans. It's all Packers there, which is understandable. You also get those Madison fans. I don't know. I would love to see a team in Wisconsin. It's just difficult. There's a lot of good-sized cities, but no major cities. Milwaukee being is it the biggest? It might be the biggest in Wisconsin. It'd be cool to see a team in Wisconsin. Hockey is big in Wisconsin. It's just, where do you put the team in Milwaukee? The where it is not ideal. They already have a lower population with 2 professional sports teams. It's a tough sell. I threw Saskatchewan on the list. If you expand to 40 teams, you can't expand entirely in the U.S. market. You just can't. There's a lot of potential to make money in the U.S., sure, because there's a lot of unexplored markets, a lot of markets you can tap into for financial gains. But it's Canada. Canada is important to the NHL. It's important to hockey. Canada is huge into hockey, and even the smallest markets are all insane fan bases. They're all diehard fan bases. So Quebec City, Hamilton, Saskatoon. There's a few others you can kind of make a case for. I'm not going to get into that right now. But in the West, it's a little more difficult. You got Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary. Oh, and Winnipeg, all with teams. Winnipeg being the smallest in the NHL. If Saskatoon got a team, they would by far be the smallest in the NHL. I don't know how much potential there is for a team to... I wouldn't necessarily say flourish. I'd say more or less make money. You're going to have a smaller arena, so it's filled every night. You're not going to have a 19,000 seat arena or 18,000 like you do in Montreal or wherever. It's going to be more of a Winnipeg style. I think the team would do fine, but it's how much merch are you going to sell in this area? There's not a whole lot of opportunity to make a few bucks in Saskatoon. Nonetheless, Saskatoon is an incredible hockey market. Fun fact, I had an ethics teacher, and she spent her whole life in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and she went to, what is it? Is it the University of, I don't know. It's either Saskatoon or Saskatchewan. I think it's University of Saskatchewan. Don't quote me. There's a university there. That's where she did all her schooling, and then randomly moved into Massachusetts and became a college professor, and it was really weird. But she's diehard into hockey. The juniors, every level of hockey, she is just there for it. It's cool. It's cool to see, but that's just the type of people you're going to find in Saskatoon. And it's similar to other hockey markets that don't have a professional sports team there. So is Saskatoon, in my eyes, ideal? No. Can it sustain a hockey team? Probably. Is the money there? Are they going to make a lot of money off this market? No. But you also want to continue to promote hockey in Canada. It's just the way you got to do things in Canada. So that's kind of my list of potential markets. Between the two videos, you got all the potential markets I could identify. Let me know if there's others. A little last note, it'd be really cool if you could find a way to have a team in like Halifax or Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or somewhere out east. Because there's a ton of hockey fans there. It's just tough because what area do you pick? Because there's not a lot of people in one given area. But some of the best hockey fans I've encountered are from that area. And there's no doubt in my mind, even if it's a smaller place, you place a team in like Halifax or something, they're going to do well. So, a little side note, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Canada. I don't think it's, great opportunity in terms of financials, but in terms of growing the game within Canada, I think it's fantastic. You can all say the same for the U.S. There's a lot. Some of these markets are massive in comparison to some of the Canadian markets that do not have a team. So there's a lot of potential to make a lot more money and kind of build the game in the U.S. a little more, especially in the southern U.S., where hockey is still a fourth, maybe fifth sport, probably fifth sport, if you consider college football and college basketball, maybe a sixth sport in some cities. So there's potential in the U.S. Either way, Canada, U.S., doesn't really matter. It's fun to look at. If I missed any, let me know. If you have other ideas or other teams that may potentially relocate in the future, drop it. Let me know. This is just fun speculation. Nothing really more than that. It's just fun. So I appreciate you guys watching, and take care, all right?